Welcome back to The Short Game. This is a show about short video games, games that respect your time. Thank goodness you're here.
Laura Nash.
Nate Heininger.
Shane is still muted.
Shane is still muted.
Struth, I was on mute. Blimey. It's me, Shane Kelly.
And this week we are talking about, that's right.
Who are you?
Sorry,
I'm say his name.
Reagan Kelly. I don't do a very good Yorkshire accent, guys. I'm very sorry. This is all you're going to hear of it from me on this episode. We're talking this week about Thank Goodness You're Here, a brand new game from developer Coal Supper and publisher Panic. And that is really the pedigree that's the reason that we were so excited to cover this game and why we reached out to them to get advanced codes. Sorry, we didn't get the episode out for day one. Here we are. We're pretty close. Not too bad. This was really on my radar because of Panic, but I realized after I was like 15, 20 minutes into this that we've actually played the previous game by these folks, which was Good Time Garden. Do you guys remember Good Time Garden, the incredibly moist game?
I think that was just the two of us. We did a moist game double feature with this and Spit Kiss back, I think, at 272. And it's only half an hour, but we just kept talking about the jokes for probably 45 minutes, which is what this episode will be, because they've done another funny, weird game.
Yeah, unfortunately, the moist episode, I'm sure, had like 3 people who listened to it because you called it Moist Games.
There were a lot of sound effects that were spitty on that, and I think it was an appropriate title for the game. Don't worry, folks who are adverse to moist games. This one's not that.
I mean, it's still pretty moist. This is a pretty wet game. There's a lot of squishes and squaps and goo and things like that. But I don't think I would have thought of it as a moist game until this conversation.
What is a more appropriate one-sentence description of this game, then? Anyone want to try to describe what this game is?
No.
We love a little guy who gets around. This one gets around slapping and solving small problems around town while creating many, many more much larger problems.
The official short description from the press kit is, Thank Goodness You're Here is an absurd comedy slapformer set in the bizarre northern English town of Barnsworth. As a traveling salesman, take the time to see the sights and meet the locals, who are very eager to give you a series of increasingly odd jobs. And that's the whole description. There are a lot of bullet points about how weird this game is, but if you are looking for plot, that's it. You're a little guy who goes around. Done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's so it's very, very specifically rooted in a particular type of comedy and a particular type of place. So being like Northern England, Yorkshire, like no one does regional dialects like England, right? And the Yorkshire regional dialect is like so drippingly present in this game. And obviously this is a comedy game. It's also a cartoon, right? It's an incredibly heightened cartoonish thing. And so not only are they doing heavy duty Yorkshire accents, but they're all wildly over the top, silly characters. I don't watch a ton of British comedy these days. Like, you know, going back a long time, I watched a lot of Monty Python as a kid, that kind of thing. And I do see a bit of a through line here. This kind of had some Monty Python vibes for me. I know that's ridiculous because, like, you know, everything has Monty Python vibes. What is it? You know, of course. But I don't know how to quite describe this other than that it has that, like, it almost feels like a ultra heightened parody of even like comedies based on like rural small town England. This is like everything you ever thought was goofy or weird about small town England, or especially Yorkshire stuff, and then turned up to 100,000. It's so ridiculous.
The whole game is just a joke delivery system, and it is an onslaught nonstop of bits. Either what the people are saying or the actions that are happening around your little salesman, the posters on the walls, I think if you probably grabbed like a still frame of any moment in this game, there's 9 different jokes happening at the same time in that single frame.
I wouldn't call myself a student of British comedy, but I do watch way too much British TV. And I think this feels in line with a lot of the Mighty Boosh, Matt Berry vibe. I think it's got a bit of Statlet's Flats of the weirdness of normal people. And looking back, I'm a fan of the Small Faces, and they have an album called Ogden's Not Gone Flake that is a comedian that like is absurdism. Like he just says sentences that halfway through the sentence, you realize none of the words make sense, and he's saying them so confidently you don't catch on for a while. His name's Stanley Unwin, and he spoke in Unwinese. I suggest everyone who hasn't heard of him look up his YouTube lecture on art. It's very good. You won't learn anything about art, but none of the words are completely made up in this game, but they might as well, because you've never seen them in quite this combination before. They feel surreal and it's not surreal. It's absurdist. It's absurdist, and I love it.
Have you ever seen Reggie Watts's TED Talk?
Yeah. It's like Reggie Watts's TED Talk in a game.
Yeah.
So weird, but British. Yeah.
But British. Yeah.
The titular gag of, thank goodness you're here is also really reminiscent of, there's a TV show, I guess it was a British, I think there's like a British version, but there have been more than one version, including an Americanized version called Thank God You're Here, which is an improv show where people just sort of stumble into the scene and people go, thank God you're here, join the scene. That's kind of how the flow of this game works. It even has a little bit of an episodic quality to it. Although I was a little disappointed that even once I finished the game, I wasn't able to go back and do any sort of chapter select. The flow of the game very much is that your little guy, who I think, Nate, was it you that coined little guy who goes around?
What are you?
No, I don't know. That came from somewhere.
Like that came from the internet somewhere, or just we absorbed that from the ether.
We've absorbed it. I love the statement though. I'm always looking for a little guy that gets around, and this is
rarely have we played a game where a littler guy goes around and around and around quite this much.
Yeah, sometimes he's like a couple inches tall, and sometimes he's a couple feet tall. I love how much they just don't care about.
I love he's as small as he needs to be.
Yeah,
non-specifically small. Like if there is a hole, he will fit in it.
Yeah.
Occasionally, he is just a little too wide for a pipe, but don't worry, the pipe will stretch while he slides down it.
Mm-hmm.
The thing
Propelled
by nothing but his own just forward momentum through the pipe. Wiggle the joystick to slide down the pipe. And the thing that is the most beautiful about this game is just the life that every single inch of every single scene has. Like whether it's they didn't need to cover everything in like crawling bugs that you can step on and random things that you can do by slapping them. But they did. Every time you slap a garbage bag, a rat pops out. And if you slap 3 nearby garbage bags, the rats will sing a song for you.
Yeah.
And if you find all the singing rat choruses, you get an achievement.
There's some fun achievements on quantity of slaps. There's a lot of slappable items that repeat themselves, and if you can find them all and slap them all. If we haven't made it clear, there's three things you can do: move, jump, and slap, and everything is centered around those 3 things.
Mm-hmm. That said, there's also a lot of kind of WarioWare style interactable scenes that give you a kind of a wonderful mix of points of view throughout the game. There are traditional like 2D-ish platformer segments. There are segments that are more open where you can wander around in a sort of isometric perspective. And there's also those kind of cartoon animated segments that often have some sort of interaction that you're doing in there. And so it has a wonderful pace and spice from just constantly showing you fantastic cartoonage that is really guaranteed to make you laugh. Something you mentioned that I really want to explain a little bit more about this game is just the way that the game sort of ushers you from scene to scene. This is a game about a town, and you get a sense of it being a whole town. There are multiple there's like a town square, there's several streets that you visit, you go inside of many houses, and there's fields surrounding, and they're all interconnected in ways that don't always actually, quote unquote, make sense, but ways that are at least consistent. It feels almost as if like you could go anywhere. You could walk around the whole town, but the game is constantly subtly and not so subtly and also very funnily funneling you from place to place. So, at any given time, like you might be in the town square, but the game wants you to go through that doorway, and that's the only one that you can get through. It's never in a way that like really made me like annoyed, because it really just wants you to go to the next joke. The game never wants you to stand still and be stuck without a joke for more than 15 seconds. And so while it is sort of a open world in a sense, it's not quite linear. It's very, very linear. It's a very long hallway, but it's a hallway that loops around and around and around. It is a Scooby-Doo hallway.
There were like a couple of times where I was a little uncertain of where to go, but it's so tight and they really limit where you actually can go that it was pretty easy most of the time to be like, oh, I just need to go, like, I need to jump in that well again, or I need to fall into that sink and get sucked down into the drain again, or go through that door or whatever. Like, rarely was I stuck for more than a minute at the most. And even still, that kind of being stuck, it's still like a fun little town to walk around in, and there's worse places to be stuck.
I mean, who needs a map? I especially appreciate the quality of life improvement of making your little guy bright yellow. So even though he is wee, he is so easy to see on the screen.
Yes.
You stand out against every background, and
He's a little tennis ball.
He's a little tennis ball.
I want to talk about the yellowness of our little yellow guy. I spotted on the press page for this another yellow guy with red hair, and I was like, "Who is that?" And it's a much larger yellow guy, and I was 95% sure that I never saw that guy in the game. And he's in a crowd full of people that you recognize by the end of this game. Beloved townsfolk. So I asked the developer Cole Sepper on their Instagram page, who is
I love it.
Yes. And they said that is the mayor.
Who's never seen in the game.
I think he's seen in the game. They specifically said that this is deep lore, so I don't know.
They've been waiting for someone to ask who the yellow man on the box art was, and it's you. Thank you for your service.
Yes, I reached out to them. They were very polite, and I was very thankful for them for making this game, which I love. This is maybe my favorite game I've played in a year or so or more. Maybe once I stop chuckling, my opinions will change, but this is without a doubt my favorite comedy game that we've played in a long time. And I can't tell you how thankful I am that this came along, because we desperately needed another comedy game to push the comedy quote unquote game that's currently at the top of the short game homepage down into lesser visibility, getting clickolding off of the top of the list. So another wonderful reason that I'm glad we're podcasting on this subject right now.
So thank goodness you're here is here.
Thank you.
It definitely shares a lot of DNA with Untitled Goose Game, right? With Panic's last release. I don't know that it's going to have the cultural impact that the goose had, the titular goose.
It's a little less memeable because it's less. I think it's it's funny visually, but I think you kind of need the audio for it. So it's not a gifable game for the most part.
But the town made me think of it, like the way you move from section to section, the town, it felt like an extreme, wacky Untitled Goose Game.
Yeah, and I feel like there are two things I really want other developers to pick up from this game besides actually making a funny game that's funny. Sorry, that's very hard. I can't make people do that. But I can make you, one, when you start a game, have an option to choose dialect or not and to turn the subtitles on. Cheers Hard Adventure, I chose dialect, no subtitles. Don't regret it, but y'all probably got more jokes than I did.
I did.
That was lovely.
No,
Yeah.
I did choose the English option, and it was kind of interesting to see that like not only does it obviously all the characters are speaking in dialect, and sometimes it's quite dense. So it does subtitle in English, but it's not just giving you a direct translation. Sometimes it will even translate particularly British phrases into their more standard American English equivalents. Like, for example, I remember there's a bit where the two teenage girls who absolutely hate each other, I'm pretty sure they're sisters, were like one was teasing the other in the store, and the other said, "Give over, Susan," or whatever, and it translated "give over" as like "stop it" or something like that. I was like, oh, okay, interesting,
Helpful.
Sometimes I was like, yeah, I don't think I needed that, translation, but other times it was kind of helpful, and it was kind of amusing to see them sort of like translating the foreign language of Yorkshire into real people English.
One thing I was surprised too with the comedy, and that you reminded me of it too with the two sisters, is while this game is quite cheeky and colorful and fun, it's probably R-rated for as far as its comedy goes, right? There's a lot more vulgar stuff in this than I was expecting.
But plausible deniability vulgar. For example, there is a sign in the back of the fish shops of like fish ends, tail ends, bell ends. Bell ends is a dick. So like there's a dick joke in the back, but what kid would get that? You have to be able to read, and you have to
Only a really cool kid.
Only a really cool kid.
This is the children, but not the British children.
You can play it in front of American children, but not British children who can read. Will find a lot of naughty bits in it. Even the settings are funny. Like you pause, and the choices are keep going, GU''IN, or FAF. And FAF is the options menu if you chose the dialect menu. So
I also very much liked the fact that this doesn't have an option that says quit to desktop. It just says, I've had enough.
It's perfect.
There is so many good bits in this, and I feel like we could probably end up like this is one of the problems with comedy games is like there's so much to talk about here, and there's so much we shouldn't and can't really talk about here. I can't make these jokes funny for you on the radio, man. They are visual, and they require acting and voice acting. We need to talk about the dang voice acting in this game. It is incredible, but like, yeah, it's so funny.
But before we do, I want to say the second thing.
Oh, go ahead.
Go on, Laura.
Yeah. But before we do, the second thing I want devs to pick up from this is the cultural specificity. Someone's already written an article about how a specific Singapore sense of humor could be done in one of her games and inspired by Thank Goodness You're Here. And I was like, yes, more people should make incredibly specific niche games that only we play. I was like, please. Like,
there's at least one podcast that loves them, so you've got a target audience of 4.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say to the exit for the option for I've had enough for the get out of the game was kind of perfect for me, because I was really glad that we got this game a little bit before release, because I needed to treat this game in the same way that I would treat a TV show like this, where it's just a bombardment of goofiness. This took me like 3.5 hours to play, and I definitely had to put it down several times to be like, I can't take any more of this wackiness. I need to step away for a little while. I've had enough. I need to put this down and come back. Like, I can't imagine if any of you insane people played this in like one sitting or something like that. I feel like that's a descent into madness. So I've had enough.
I think I did it in about 2 main sessions, and it took me about, Steam said 2.7 hours. I think this is like a really good length for a comedy game, because much longer than this, and like, first of all, you got to be running out of jokes, man. And also, like, there's a reason that stand-up comedy sets are only like an hour or an hour and a half or something, because there's no way, man. But this is perfect for just sitting down and enjoying it like a really funny TV show for, about twice, and then you're done.
It barely wastes like a single second of its runtime. It is wall to wall jokes and activity and and constant colorful cartoons, and a fantastic cast of little side characters. So there are more lovable little side characters in this game than there are in like whole franchises across video games.
Yeah. And now we can open the floodgates on voice acting.
Oh yeah. Does anybody have any particular favorite characters for one reason or another? I won't spoil all the jokes with him, but I think I really enjoyed the saga of the guy with the really big head who ran the vegetable shop.
Oh, poor guy.
Ron's veg.
Ron, that's right. I loved Ron, and I really did like. I won't spoil anything, but I really did like the conclusion of Ron's plot line. I felt good at the end, despite Ron's many difficulties.
One of my favorite characters. Also one of the strangely colored individuals in this game. Mostly people are just a healthy shade of pink, but not our
just
not
like
our
in real Yorkshire.
If you have a weird oblong head, you might also be yellow in this game. Not sure what that means. I think my favorite is hard. I mean, it's got to be Herbert, the gardener, played by Matt Berry. I adore Matt Berry. He's very funny. Like
every time you'd come through the garden, he would be on the phone, and you'd hear a snippet of his phone conversation, and they'd be things like, you say it's brown. It's turned brown on both sides. As it's very warm. Sounds like you've toasted it. No, it won't go back.
Like, that. Yeah, when you first see him, he's trying to get his garden hose working by sucking on the end of it. He's just
Bless.
Very
and
good.
I adored the vendor of the big fish and cigs who you slap a fish and he has a cigarette in his mouth, and it's just like he sells fish and cigarettes, and the two are combining. You slap a cigarette case and out pops 3 sardines. Like the cigs needs fish and the fish needs cigs. Who am I to judge?
Yeah, I like the guy that's trying. He was lobbying to bring back asbestos. That's a cause that I don't think enough of us have gotten behind. So it was good to see that represented in this game. I also like the very fancy, I don't know, was he a locksmith? He's at the bar the whole game, and he's just regaling the bartender
with the bicycle.
He's just regaling the bartender with very, very British stories over and over and over. The bartender's just and it's just a fun little thing you stop by over and over and over again.
Yeah. Also, shout out to my favorite background gag, which is the sign for lost cat, also child.
That's what I mean. There's signs and posters everywhere. I love the parked van that's like blocking you from leaving an area, and it has a big thing on the side. It just says like Dan's parked vans. You'll never see them move. Like, of course, why not make it a gag as to why you can't?
There's so many good ways of blocking exits that they don't want to use. I think my favorite was there was a student driver that just keeps appearing, like wedged into various different alleyways, shifting forward and backward.
Yeah,
very funny.
And every shop rhyming except I think Ron's veg. Why not? Perfect.
So what else can we say about this game? With comedy games, especially with very short comedy games, I think we probably want to leave you with, not too much more, because we can't, go on and on about the jokes. They're not going to get any funnier when we tell them. But this game is it's about $20 on Steam, although it's currently on sale. So it's got the intro sale. I think you can get it for like $16-17, something like that. About 3-ish hours. It's also on everything. This is one of the things that Panic has done really well in terms of publishing, is that they do a real blitz release. It's out on the Mac App Store. It's out on Steam for Mac and Windows if you prefer to buy there. It's on the Epic Game Store. It's also on PS4 and 5. And on Switch. And I played both on my Steam Deck, which it ran it great, and also on my PC, which was also nice, because then I could sit real close to a nice big screen and see all the little details. That was kind of fun.
Works great on Switch. Haptics are very fun. They use the haptics for jokes, which I always appreciate.
That is cool. Yeah, that does make me wish I'd tried that. I don't think that it did that on the Steam
Deck
version.
No, I don't feel like I had any haptics on the Steam Deck.
Yeah.
Bonus jokes for me.
Darn. Yeah, get this game, man. This is one of the funniest things we've ever played. I think it's like absolute top shelf as far as like comedy games are concerned. I would recommend this to practically anybody.
Peak smart stupid. Like it is so
Yes.
stupid. It is so smart. Mwah.
It is definitely like the dumbest game we've ever played too. And I think you'll know within 5 minutes if this game is for you or not, because it is the game. The first 5 minutes are fundamentally the same as the last for the most part. And it's like, if those jokes are working for you, they're probably not 100% going to work. You know, they're rapid firing jokes, but if you find yourself laughing pretty quickly into the game, then you're probably going to be laughing for the entire time you're playing it.
Absolutely.
And I certainly was.
I'm going to replay this one. I know it just as soon as I have somebody with a good sense of humor to sit down with.
I don't want to no specific spoilers, but I just want to call out that they also nailed the ending of this game. I was so delighted.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I think I want to leave it at that. But I was very delighted with how they capped off this game.
Every game needs a good punchline. Well, every comedy game does. And if you do, it's like one of the worst things about comedy games is their ending. No notes on this one.
Absolutely. I was actually really looking forward to seeing what they did there, because I was thinking back to Untitled Goose Game, which, you know, again, we've talked about some of the like minimal similarities, but there are some vibe similarities. And because Panic is involved on both, I thought, you know, what is going to be that final bell moment of this game? And it delivered. It was very, very good. I agree. Yeah. Okay, so thanks very much. We are going to have to make this a pretty short episode. And that is because, listeners, let me tell you, we've had some recording difficulties and we had to squeeze this one into a free minute when we were all available. So this is a short episode of The Short Game. We don't have time for what's making us happy this week. But you know what? If you want to know what's making me happy this week, you can join us on the Discord and I'll tell you there. So here's the outro. You can find our show on the internet at shortgame.fm. That is the website with all the links and buttons. You can go there to get to our show on all of the various different podcast platforms, see a list of recent episodes. There's a clickable thing there to search the show notes if you want to search back and find old episodes, like the one about Good Time Garden. Did you know Good Time Garden is free, as in $0 on Steam? If you like this and you want about a half hour more of something extremely weird and similar, go check that out. It is great. So you can also find from there our Patreon page, patreon.com/theshortgame. And every one of our patrons who supports the show, thank you patrons, gets immediate access to our Discord community, which is where we talk about the show, we talk about the episodes that are coming up, we talk about recent episodes, we recommend games to each other, to the show, just in general. We have channels for talking about long games, and it's just a general good hang if you need one of those on the internet. So I would recommend you join us, and we love newcomers there. Yes. So come on down. And I am Reagan Kelly.
Laura Nash.
I'm Shane Kelly.
Nate Heininger.
And thank you once again for joining us on this episode of The Short Game.